Gentlemen, today for our video lesson, we're going to be dealing with main idea number 3 for chapter 10, section 1, that has to deal with the Romans' early form of government, the Republic, after they kicked out the Etruscan monarchy. If you can remember, the last video ended here in section 1 with the Roman nobles overthrowing the last Etruscan king because of his cruelty, and then they set up their own government. The Roman nobles did. And the government they chose to set up in 509 BC is known as a republic. And a republic is where people elect leaders to govern them. Just like here in the United States, we elect leaders to make laws for our country. And that's what a republic is, and that is our U.S. form of government. As you can see right here, the government of the United States today is a republic. Now, Rome's is a little bit different to the United States, but remember, for our essential question for this unit is we want to compare and contrast the Roman form of government with the United States government that we have today. Now, this one here, each year the Romans elected officials to rule their city. Here in the United States, we go to the ballot box to elect a president every 4 years, a senator every 6 years, House of Representatives every 2 years. Local city councils and mayors could be every 2, 4, 6 years. Each system has its own rules that govern them. Now, these officials had many powers, just like they do here in the United States, but as it was in Rome, they only stayed in power for 1 year. It was supposed to, and really it was designed to keep one person from gaining too much power. And that's exactly how our founding fathers in 1787, when they wrote the Constitution, that was their thinking also. They didn't want power to be controlled by one person or a very small group of people here in the United States. So they tried to take the framework that the Romans used successfully 2,500 years ago and develop that into our system. Now, just like our government or our country, we are not a democracy, neither was Rome. Okay? Even today, a lot of power is held in the hands of a very small group. In Rome, of course, it was a small group of wealthy men. These wealthy Romans held all the power, and really a lot of people had no say in it. Most of the people in Rome couldn't even vote. Now think about our early republic in the late 1700s throughout the 1800s. First of all, women could not vote. Blacks could not vote. In the very beginning, only white men that owned land could vote. So, even in our early history, there were some challenges as to who could vote. Now, the biggest problem that the early Romans faced is that they had these leadership positions within their government. One of them was the consul. The consul would be very similar to how we have a president today. We have one president. They had 2 consuls. And what would happen is those consuls could veto each other out. So if there was a really quick decision that had to be made, emergencies, things like that, it was very difficult in Rome because you had to have both consuls agree, and very rarely would that happen. And Romans found out really quickly that, hey, we've got a problem within our government. It's very hard for us as a government to make decisions. And that's why the very beginnings of Rome, there was a lot of conflict, especially from outsiders attacking this small city-state. Once they found out the Etruscans had been kicked out, a lot of the surrounding tribes really wanted to take over Rome. As you can see on this map here, there were a lot of other peoples around there. I mean, it could have been the Etruscans coming back. It could have been the Greeks that were down here trying to take over Rome. You have the Carthaginians from Africa. They might want to come over here and take over Rome. So there was a lot of problems in the very beginning. And that's why very early on in their government, they decided to make a position called a dictator, or these rulers who have almost absolute power. And these dictators were supposed to lead the city for about a 6-month time period. And these dictators could come from anywhere within the Roman Republic. It could be somebody that already holds a government office, or it could be somebody from outside of government as long as they were Romans. And that's what brings us to Cincinnatus. Cincinnatus is one of the most famous of all of the dictators. Now, these dictators are only supposed to have power for about 6 months, and then maybe a new dictator would have to come in, or that dictatorship is over with. Now, Cincinnatus, he's going to gain power in about 458 BC. So really about 50 years after the Roman Republic is set up, they needed Cincinnatus here to come help them defend Rome against a very powerful enemy. Now, what happens within a couple weeks? Cincinnatus defeats this outside enemy. And this is the cool thing as to why Cincinnatus is remembered, is that he will then give up power. He could rule for another 5 months, but what he does is he leaves. He resigns his dictatorship and says, this is not what Rome is supposed to be about. I'm going to go back to my farm, long before his 6-month term is up. The victory by Cincinnatus did not end these troubles, but it set a precedent for even people within our government early on in the 17 and 1800s. Okay, I would really like you to pause right now and read this here part about Cincinnatus, because there is a question on that green sheet where it asks about why do Romans look up to Cincinnatus so much, and how does he connect to our own history in the United States? And it has to deal with George Washington. Later on today, or maybe the next day, we're going to watch a video that connects Cincinnatus and George Washington to each other. All right. Now we're going to talk about some challenges within Rome. So we had challenges with outsiders coming in and attacking Rome, where you needed dictators and things like that to help out. But you also have challenges within Rome. And it especially comes down with the two different classes of citizens that were in Rome. And they are the plebeians and the patricians. Now you can see this chart here. It really does a good job of showing the differences between the two. What happens is, first of all, there are so many more plebeians than there are patricians. And the plebeians are the commoners or the lower class. They're the ones that have to do basically all of the work within Rome. But in the very beginning, they hold no political office. They have no say in government. They can't even vote. Not only can they not serve in government, they don't even get to vote for the people that are in government. Here's Rome, run mostly by the nobles or the patricians. Now, first of all, it would have been these patricians or nobles that overthrew the Etruscan kings. They set up the Roman Republic. And of course, these patricians are going to make themselves powerful over Rome. They hold all of the political offices. But right here it shows they're a very small minority of the population. So, most of the jobs in Rome and all of the other people in Rome is being done by these plebeians. But they have no rights at this time in Rome. So, what do the plebeians do? They fight back the only way they know how. And they don't have to fight back with weapons. Okay? They can fight back by basically saying, we're not going to do any work for you, patricians. We're going to set up our own government. Okay? Even though the plebeians outnumbered, they couldn't take part in government, but by 494, so we're looking in the first 15 years of this government, the plebeians will form their own government within Rome. They elect their own officials, their own council, and this frightens many of the patricians. Because if you see, it's the plebeians. They're the ones that are the workers, the peasants, the craftspeople, the traders, other workers. The plebeians are relied upon by the patricians rely on those plebeians to do the work. So really quickly, the patricians realize we have to do something to make the plebeians happy. And that's where they're going to have to make a change in this Roman Republic to appease the plebeians. As a parallel to the United States, it's what happens in our country right after the American Revolution. The very first form of government we had as a country was called the Articles of Confederation. That only lasted about 7 years. Luckily, our founding fathers, George Washington being one of them, they realized real quickly, this first government that we have, this Articles of Confederation, is so bad, we have to overthrow that government and create a new government. Okay? And that's what the Romans also knew in 494 BC. But the new form of government that will be set up, that is section 2. Okay, so we're finished with this section here. Hopefully you've got some good notes for some answers there on the last part of that chapter 10, section 1 notes. And then we do have a video to watch that's going to be comparing Cincinnatus with our own George Washington. Thank you, guys.